Welcome to the ExecMBA Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Andrew Moore. Andrew is a graduate in our Executive MBA class of 2020, and after his time at Darden, he launched his own venture, a communications PR venture called Narrative. In this episode, we talk with Andrew about his decision to pursue an MBA, what led him to Darden, the impact of his Darden experience, how he decided to launch Narrative, and so much more. I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. So without further ado, here's my interview with Andrew Moore. Andrew, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Brett. It's good to be back.
And it's great to have you here. We were catching up before we started recording, and you were kind enough to remind me that, yes, this is your second podcast episode. You had been on way back when talking about community outreach efforts on behalf of your classmates as part of your community rep role. But you're here today to talk with us about something a little bit different than that. But first and foremost, how are things? How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing well. We're kind of appear to be kind of at the end, the after year of pandemic here, which was pretty intense in Washington, and then had an effect on, I think, our class and all the ones after it up until maybe this year. And so it's a unique time and a good time, I think, to be having this conversation today.
All right. So for our listeners who haven't had a chance to listen to your previous episode, let's set the stage a little bit more here before we get into talking about your venture and business and how things are going with that. But first and foremost, tell us a little bit more about you. What's your background?
Yeah, so my background, I'm originally from Louisiana, but moved up to the Washington area for school and then stayed working here in communications and public affairs and public relations. Also did some work at a tech startup and eventually really started to drift toward the business development and entrepreneurialism side of things, which is maybe not the most prevalent kind of thing in Washington. It's a little bit more government heavy, sort of a secure, sort of business heavy area, but was able to kind of find that way. And then that's what got me interested in Darden. And I think explains a lot of the kind of work I've wanted to do, creating value for clients through my own firm, Narrative, since then. So I've loved it. It's been a great place to live and learn. Met my wife here. We live on Capitol Hill, and I've really enjoyed it, and really loved my Darden experience as well, which was just across the river in Roslyn. Got to make a really great group of friends, and I originally went there because of that interest in business development, and really just saw around me that there just wasn't enough of that in terms of hard skills and people I could learn from at the kinds of places I was working at. And so I really had to go out and find that for myself. And what I enjoyed about, so I did the executive program and was a part of the class of 2020, was that everyone had their own unique experience, that everyone was already at a level in their careers where they really had insights to share, really practical things. And it wasn't sort of an academic exercise. We didn't have to do simulations to kind of figure out how this might work in the real world. You could just kind of ask somebody, have you ever been through a merger, or have you ever had to integrate two cultures at a firm and make that work? Have you ever had to work with investors, and hit milestones? So that, to me, was one of my favorite parts of the program, because I really learned that way through that experience. And we had people from 28 years old, probably to 65 years old. So you really had just all levels of experience, which was pretty incredible. And I still work with many of my former classmates today. Many of them are clients in the healthcare industry and the science and research industry, and others doing communications work for them, whether it's internal communications and strategy and consulting, or external. How are we going to get our message out there? And to me, it's a very simple problem, but the answer is always complicated because everyone has a message or a product or an issue that exists kind of in this box, but then how do you get that message out of that box? That's always what you want to do. And so how do you do that? And the answer to that is really complicated. Who's your audience? What are your different channels? Who's the person delivering that message? And then kind of what's the best way to do it? Through words, through messaging, through images and creative. So that's what I've done for the last several years. When I started the company in 2020, working with clients, and I've been super happy with the progress that we've made. It's been kind of unbelievable to me that it has wound up that way. I could have easily seen it going the other way, right? Many businesses do fail, or they take several years to get to profitability or sustainable growth. And we've been able to achieve that really after that first year, but probably even less than that when I decided really like this is going to be my sole focus, sort of the Cortez, we're going to burn the boats, we're not going back. When you do that, that really makes a big difference. Like this is the only thing I'm going to do. So for me, at least that was hugely helpful, and things started happening almost immediately after that. And I enjoy a lot of different elements of it, but I think a lot of the things that I enjoy are the things that translate directly to clients. Many of them, my friends, I love creating value for them. We're super flexible in kind of what we offer, and a lot of other firms in communications and PR here are not. We love to be creative with our solutions. I think that creative element, is important really to everyone. There's sort of a creative element that we just have as people, and we need to apply that to different things in our lives. And for me, I do that through business and in the kind of solutions that I like to work on and outcomes I like to achieve with clients. And then adds kind of a fun element to it. And you also can get other people excited, So if you can get people excited, you get your clients excited about what they want to say and kind of how, that's half the battle, because they're going to do a much better job of doing what they need to do to sell something or to get an investor interested, or to convince the internal folks kind of to come around to the culture change they're trying to make, which is a really, really hard thing to do. So that's a long answer to your question, but I sort of see it as a straight line, even though all of that has taken place over, I guess, a longer period of time.
Well, let's go back just a little bit, Andrew. When you look back on your Darden experience, what was your favorite thing about it? What were the highlights for you?
It was definitely the friendships that I made, and the folks I got to connect with. We all had in common, I think, that we all went there for our own reasons, but they were similar in that we wanted to reach another level in our career and personal lives. I think that's the sort of basic outline for everyone. You want to change in terms of your career and in terms of your, who you are, and move yourself forward. And everyone just did that in different ways. And we had a lot of ways to categorize that at Darden. Like you're a climber, you're trying to climb up in your career, you're a switcher, you're trying to switch from one job or one industry to another, or you just don't know. So that was kind of the three camps. I'm not sure where I even fall in that, but that was pretty attractive, and I think brought us together, as a class, when you kind of learn these things about each other. I'd say the most surprising thing that I really was happy with was that you're supposed to learn these hard skills and also many soft skills. Certainly did that, and that's sort of theoretically the reason why I went there. But then after going through it, the amount that you learn about yourself intentionally, I mean, they're trying to teach you about yourself and help you learn these things, I was very surprised by that. I didn't expect that I would learn any of that, but did. And part of it is through several different tests throughout the course of the program, some that are kind of like a benchmark, and then some that maybe gauge that those changes. And I think even for people who've done a lot of those tests before, just in the context of the program and with their peers, they were able to get much more valuable insights out of it. And so I still use those kinds of insights about myself today, that resonated with me in the way I think, like, how am I going to react in this situation? Or, it can be hard to sort of exploit your own positives and negatives, but you kind of need to do that and have that information about yourself and the way you think and what you value and the way you operate. And that was a really, I think, great thing that I got out of Darden and use every day.
When you look back at your experience, where you started to where you finished, this knowledge of self, the soft skills, the hard skills, all these things that you mentioned, it certainly come up here on the podcast. But what was the impact for you, in terms of your time at Darden?
Yeah. The impact was just able to make, I think, better decisions over time. As I'm thinking about, especially long-term kind of career goals and answering questions like, would I be happy doing this? Would I be successful doing this? I set this goal. Will I be able to achieve it? I kind of go back to, well, these are kind of some personality traits that you possess. And so I can kind of gauge based on that a little bit. And then also tackling different projects. It's objective oriented. It's sort of an objective leadership. And in those cases, kind of have to create a solution that you might need to compensate for your own weaknesses or the things that you aren't great at, and find others who maybe are. Maybe I'm not as organized as some people that have organization as sort of a key part of their personalities, just like orderliness. Things need to get done in a sort of 1, 2, 3 linear fashion. And I'm not that way. I can start with 3 and then go back to 1, and it just depends. But there are some cases where we need to work with others who have that trait sort of at the forefront. And that's been helpful as I go through different client accounts and work that I have to do for them, because it's always a unique challenge. But the job, you still have to kind of find a solution and surround yourself with a good team.
So when did this idea of launching Narrative come to you? Was this something that you started the program with? Was this something that you realized during the program?
That's a great question. I realized when I was there at the program that some people did go to school with an idea of a business they wanted to start immediately after. I did not know anyone did that until I went there and kind of learned that. I did not have any idea of starting my own business immediately after school, but that's what I did, actually probably during the program. And the reason was because I noticed or had this sort of theory about the market, the communications market here, in that the average person at a communications firm or PR firm is there for about 2.5 or 3 years. And so there's a lot of churn at the bottom of the chain of these firms. That's sort of the associate level. And then at the top, at the senior levels, at the executive vice president levels or the CEO level, those individuals need to bring in new business. And it's a constant need. You have to hit quarterly numbers, especially if you're a public company or even a large private one here. And so there's a lot in between that in terms of delivering for your customers, your clients, on the plan that you actually sold them, right? And a lot of places struggle with that. A lot of places don't have good management and leadership of the accounts, or maybe they have some of it, but they don't have enough. They're kind of plugging gaps on the other accounts. And that's where I come in, because I've worked at a handful of firms here in DC over about a 10-year period. And so I have relationships with lots of people in the industry serving those clients at firms. And I go to them and say, hey, I can offer you this solution to help work with your clients. I get the kind of team dynamic. I can integrate quickly and be effective immediately. And so that was really the backbone of the business when I started it. And today it's probably more like half and half. It's sort of a combined solution where there's that non-traditional element where I work with firms, and there's more of the traditional client element where I'm working with corporations and healthcare, investing, energy, minerals, lots of other transportation, lots of other industries. And so it's grown over time in that way. And even when I'm working with firms, I'm working directly with their clients. And so it's obviously across industries as well, but it's just a different dynamic. So I've really loved doing both of those things. I think we're probably the only firm that has both of those things combined. It takes a lot of trust to be able to step in and do that with these firms. And so I have great relationships with the people that I do that with, and love that work, because they also kind of get it. When you're talking to more traditional clients, you can really go across the spectrum of they have no communication support. I mean, even super advanced firms that may have been around for a long time, they may just have nobody who does anything. So for some of those firms, it's starting from zero, and at other places, you're starting at a much higher level. And so you can kind of exercise more of those advanced solutions that require more bandwidth, more experience, and more commitment, because it does take, you can hire somebody, you can hire a firm like ours to help you, but we also sort of give as good as we get. We need sort of a give and take from the leadership at these firms, and a lot of buy-in to be able to be successful. You know, you can take the ball and move it forward pretty well, but we need sort of a collaboration. And so success rests a lot on that dynamic, I think. And you have some executives who really love communications and marketing, and they want to do that, and others who are maybe less inclined. It's a lot harder, and so there's a lot more education. And I think really what I do is I generally don't go in and try to sell a potential customer. Really, I just educate. So somebody tells me they have this communication problem, and I kind of educate them on what the nexus might be with a communications effort, what a solution might look like, what they might want to look for. And a lot of the time that leads to working with them to create a real strategy and then helping solve that problem. But I really wasn't going into it in terms of, I have this product or service that I want to sell you. It's just kind of a collaboration to help them solve that problem, even if it's just one conversation from the beginning. And that's kind of the way that I like to do business, is really from the beginning, having that collaboration. And it helps when you do that. It helps in the long run.
So what do you enjoy about communications?
That's a good question. I like that I do probably different things for every client, for every customer, whether it's marketing, whether it's public relations and crisis communications, whether it's public affairs and more of like a political lobbying type element to it, maybe just consulting. There are lots of different elements to it. So I like having all these tools, and for the challenge to always be different. There are a lot of niche firms that really do one thing, and maybe even for one industry. There are a lot of firms that maybe only do digital advertising for healthcare or something. But that's not kind of the way I operate. I sort of cover a lot more space, and services and industries and things. And I enjoy that challenge every day. And I really want to help them solve these problems. And in cases where we can kind of pull out a win, where it's kind of a binary, you either win or you lose, I love that as well, because I'm a pretty competitive person. I really enjoy winning those kinds of battles, whether it's making your product or service number one, or maybe it's a fight over some kind of an issue. Like Washington, there are a lot of what they call issue advocacy fights, sometimes really, really, really in the weeds types of things that nobody really has ever heard of, but are important to certain companies and things and industries. So helping them get a win is great. I really enjoy that, and it can take years to do that sometimes, just depending on the nature of the problem, because markets can be slow to adopt new products and changing services, and so can the sort of political establishment here, and the people that you need to influence can be very slow to adopt a new solution or a different solution. And so, but you have to start. You have to start somewhere with your message, and have a well thought out kind of plan, and then iterate as you go and make changes based on the kind of response that you're getting. Because today, when you communicate, it's really a two-way street. I mean, on social media, people can talk back to you, they can email you, they can call you. There's a lot more of an ability for everyone to have a platform today than there ever was before. And so that can be good, and that it helps you optimize your own message and get kind of an instant result or some instant feedback. It can also be bad because it gives others who might disagree with you a platform as well. But then how do you deal with that? So you've got to really just think about all those things whenever you're going out there delivering this message. It can be pretty subjective, success is different. The definition of success is different for everyone. I mean, are you trying to grow your social media followers? Are you trying to sell more of your product? It just depends. And those with the most clear definition of success, I think, are most likely to be successful on the client side. So if they have an idea of really what those metrics are, what those things are they'd like to achieve, and they can kind of focus everything on that, then everyone around them is doing the same thing and helping them to achieve that. So that's something I've noticed over the last few years, that those that have been really effective have been able to do that.
How do you stay current on all these different issues, or how are you able to operate in this kind of more generalist mode?
Part of it is if I have a problem that I can't solve or is really new to me, I'll reach out to my friends in the industry and just say, look, I have this issue, and have you seen something like this? And that happens occasionally, but generally that's not a huge challenge, because things do change, but I don't think you have to jump on every new thing, because there's always going to be a new social media tool. There's always going to be something else that comes out. Right now, it's ChatGPT and some of these other AI content generation companies. I've had a bunch of clients ask about that. Like, can we use that to generate content? And I remember people doing this 8 or 9 years ago, and the results weren't great. I think today it's a lot better, but there have always been kind of these plugins that would automatically populate your social feeds with content that you didn't really review or anything. It just kind of generated it based on your inputs. And so I think the tools today are a lot more powerful. You can do a lot more with it. So what I do is try to integrate, things like that, where you actually can potentially increase production and sort of effectiveness, those things can be valuable. But you don't have to be on every one of these social platforms or parts of their social platforms. It would just be overwhelming and too much like that. There was the chat program or the voice, that conversation kind of program that came out a couple of years ago, where it was just audio conversations. Do you remember that? I can't remember the name of it now because nobody uses it, because I think Facebook created their own and Twitter created their own, because they can take your solution and scale it instantly, and everyone else has to build scale. That's their great advantage, right? So I had a lot of people, though, interested at the time in using that and trying to leverage it. And it turns out to really not be a durable platform, So you have to be careful with that, I think, whenever you start up something new, to temper some of those expectations,
You think Chat GPT will have some implications for the communications industry? It's amazing.
Yeah, it'll have a lot of implications, I think. I think people, the idea that it'll help create a first draft of a lot of content is probably true. The hardest part of a draft of anything is creating the first one of them, because you're creating just something out of nothing, right? So I think it really does have great potential, but you sort of have to wait and see. You are seeing signs that I think BuzzFeed, I think other news organizations are laying off staffers, and they say that they're going to use more AI. If that actually works, you'll see more of that reflected in the communications industry. Because if the people out there that you're actually pitching to write about your thing are using this and it's making them more effective, then, why not use it yourself to write the actual pitch? Wouldn't that be easier? So that would mean that it's pretty effective. So I think time will tell, but the growth of it has been amazing, and the interest of it has been, I've probably seen more interest in it than any new tool that I've seen come out in the last 10 years. Probably since social media, there hasn't been a tool that so many people have been interested in, a free tool, interested in adopting to try to increase their communications production capacity. But it's another thing that the inputs are super important. So where is that website going to get the inputs about your company? Well, is your website all up to date? Do you have all of your kind of key messages all written out, the things that you want to put out there? So if you have all of that done, then you can probably leverage it more. But it's not like you can just say, please give me the most important things I should talk about today without any, and I happen to be a healthcare company. It's not going to really give you something that is that relevant to your business. I find it interesting that there is this sort of social capital and business capital to sort of authenticity and, handcrafted this or that. And I could see a world where firms and businesses are saying, like, we craft your message ourselves, not with an AI solution. I could see that being some kind of a niche, like, competitive advantage, like, we really pay attention to you and read every word, because not everybody's going to be comfortable, because if you're putting sensitive information into that machine, what are they doing with it? If it's sensitive information about your company or your messaging and things, do you trust them enough to actually do that? You don't own where that information is going. So when somebody asks, a question about your company through that platform, are they going to get back their information that you put in there? I don't know. So there's a sort of security element to it that I don't know the answer to, but is going to be interesting. But certainly it can be a powerful tool for sure.
So Andrew, where did things stand with your venture?
Yeah, so they're going well. We're growing. growth has been pretty tremendous over the last 2 years. So it started in 2020, but really that 2021 and 2022 were great years, and started during the pandemic. So that was a pretty tough environment, and we've seen that environment improve over time. In some ways, it's helped in terms of clients and firms being a lot more open to digital-only collaboration instead of in office. There have been clients I haven't met before, which is that's a completely different world. That would never happen before. You'd have an in-person kind of kickoff and things, and that happened really, really, really fast in the industry, because just a year before then, you really weren't even doing video conferencing in a lot of these industries. You were doing just WebEx. You were just dialing in a conference room, and connecting that way. So that changed very quickly. And I think this year is also going to be another great year, just building on the success that we've had. We're going to do some rebranding and kind of change up the look and feel, and kind of capture some of the services and products and processes that we've developed over the last couple of years, and put a finer point on them, and use that to I think be more effective and continue to drive growth, and maybe expand a little bit into some other industries as well. So it's been pretty tremendous. I'm super happy with the way that it's turned out, and it's been great working with so many of my former friends at Darden, as well as they grow their company. Many of them with dozens and dozens of employees, but maybe different models, sort of investor-backed models or something. And it's been great working with those folks and kind of seeing how they're growing and learning from them and some of their examples, and their leadership. And it's a really diverse group across a bunch of different industries that you wouldn't really think would all come together in one place, but did. And so those different perspectives kind of together have been really valuable in helping me kind of discern what sustainable growth is for narrative, and where we'll kind of go this year.
Just listening to you talk about where you are, I imagine launching a business in 2020, no easy thing.
No, that was really tough. They say that businesses started in down years or hard times are more durable. I don't know how true that is, but it seems like if you're able to deal with that, then it shows like a level of commitment and resiliency, and it tells you some things about your model that maybe would be a rude awakening if you were only on an upward trajectory over a period of years and then kind of hit problems, right? So overcoming that was really tough, but I'm fortunate that it did work out. We're able to kind of navigate all the different challenges that come with that, because the broader business environment, it does affect the industry. It affects what clients want to do, how much work they want to do on this front, whether or not they want to bring on a firm at all. So, but we're able to sort of get past that and turn it in, I think, to something that's positive. And this year, who knows? I mean, it's kind of 50-50 whether or not it feels like there's going to be a recession or not. You've certainly seen jobs kind of at the white collar jobs. Many of them get eliminated at tech firms, at some of these news outlets we were talking about. So that watching that is interesting, but you've also got basically full employment as well. So I think it's very unsure what's going to happen this year, but after kind of going through 2020, I don't think it's going to be that bad.
Well, how was your Darden experience helpful as you've launched Narrative, as you've grown Narrative?
It gave me a lot of confidence to be able to do this. Um, and I've seen my friends again grow large businesses, and questions I really wouldn't have had answers to before, like how do you attract investors that drive growth? I really just wouldn't have had a good answer before, but I've actually been a part of some of those conversations with other companies that we are raising capital and have been. Um, One of them is Alpeak Labs with Tim and the team, and we've been working on with them for the last several years, and trying to create a better cancer screening solution. So a lot of learning from just those personal connections and then experiences that they've had, and then um, even when we were back in Charlottesville last spring and met with many of our professors there, and that was great. Just talking with them about some of the problems and sort of the trajectory of the business, and they kind of offered their perspective on it. Um, our accounting professor was one who was doing that. I know he has helped a lot of my friends out as well, and he's always super happy to do it. So it's helped in a lot of tangible ways. And I think just the skills that I have that I was able to gain there and kind of develop as well, from kind of that finance and accounting, those harder skills that weren't as much part of what I did before, have been really valuable. And we have, again, people who do that from the program who are just experts on it. And some of them have helped me solve some of those problems. I've just reached out directly. And because for me, connecting through business is just a big way I connect with other people. Some are on sports teams together. That's very popular here in DC. Some, maybe their kids are in the same school together and they connect with people. But I connect a lot through just business and creating value for others and being helpful to them. I just enjoy that, and have been lucky to be able to do that with a lot of my classmates, even while I was just still in the program, because obviously everyone was working full time during the program. So it could be hard to get on people's calendar actually because of that, because people had lives and families and were traveling and everything. But was able to build some really great relationships out of it.
Well, Andrew, one last question for you here. What would you encourage prospective students to think about, or what would you want them to know about Darden's Executive MBA program?
Yeah, I think some of the things, again, that I found most valuable were things that I just didn't know at all, like the learning about yourself, and that's had a big impact on my career and even kind of personal choices. So I think that's a great benefit, and that should be factored in. I also think the impact of people working at high levels in their careers and in their industries, even if you're not in that industry or career path at all, is really valuable. And it's sort of concrete experience. It's not abstract, and that can help you a lot in your career. Not just having those perspectives, in class, but building relationships with those people, because you just never know. I have many classmates who've hired several of our other. I think one person has hired 5 people from our class. I'm not like 5 people, and there's only, how many were there? 100 something people in our class. I think one person has hired 5% of our class or something, to help lead a company, which is incredible. And so I would say that you never know kind of what those relationships might lead to. But if you're kind of leaning into it and you're open about like your own goals, and you get along well and have similar values and everything, just in terms of what you want in life, you just never know where that's going to go. But I think it's always going to be a positive thing. So for me, all of that, I didn't necessarily, expect or think about when I started or when I was just evaluating programs, when I was thinking, okay, how good is this aspect of the program? Darden is known for the quality of its teaching and like engaging professors, maybe more than any single element of the program. And that was incredible. I mean, the teaching and the engagement from the professors was excellent, even on topics that I just like accounting, that can be a little bit harder to grasp sometimes for somebody who is not in that world fully. That was great. And so I would have expected that to really be the highlight, but it was maybe, it was maybe number 3 or 4 on the list of things at the end of the day, but was really valuable overall.
Well, Andrew, congratulations on everything you're doing with Narrative. It's exciting to hear about you working with your classmates and, weathering, launching in 2020 and finding yourself at a point here where the business is growing and you're working on lots of, it sounds like, interesting projects. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
If you want to learn more, go to narrativepublicaffairs.com. Okay. That'll be my shameless plug. But for those listening, I think this podcast gets a lot of folks interested in the school and making that decision. It was certainly a hard decision to go to Darden, to go to any business school, because it's such a commitment and you have to be, I think, at that time in your life. And so it took, I think, a couple of years. But for those listening, there's going to be really great, I think, unexpected things about the program that you're able to get out of it personally and professionally. And to consider that when you're making your decision, but also, the sort of long-term value of that is going to be something I think really special. And for me, it has been, even just in the short term. So I think just having that perspective and considering it being like the right time in your life to do a program like that will really help you maybe make a decision with some more information than I had at the time, because I hadn't heard some of these things that I experienced that were positives of the program. So hopefully that'll help some folks, if they're on the edge of making a decision or a selection or something, sort of have a little bit more information, because for me it was invaluable. I mean, every day and kind of the work that I do, there's that Darden connection that has been really great. And it's through those relationships with folks that I'm actually talking to some of them in 2 hours. We have a call. So it's been really helpful. And that way I wouldn't have, traded it for anything.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for your time. It's always great catching up and wonderful to have you back on the podcast. Congratulations on everything that you're doing.
Thank you, Brett. It's great to hear from you. I don't know anyone busier than you, and really appreciate all the work that you do.
And that was my interview with Andrew Moore, a graduate in our Executive MBA class of 2020. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at exec, that's ExecMBA@darden.virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.